Maria, Anthony, and I had a difference of opinion. I tend I tend to be wordy and long and try and include explanations in terms of why things are the way they are. But then correctly or rightfully so, we said, okay, that's just too much information for non-family, right? So I'm going to fill in pieces of the obituary that are not in the official obituary and are not in the back of the missalette for tomorrow, right? So probably the things that I would want you to take with you are, number one, she was a very bright woman.
Yeah, she was.
Okay. But being born in the 1930s, her parents felt it was a waste of time to get a woman educated, right? She could have been a teacher. She could have been a lot more. She had the raw intellect there, So that was always a regret that she had, when you talk to her. So if you look at that in 2 quick generations, in terms of where you guys are today, is just phenomenal. So it's just like, when we take things for granted in terms of, hey, we have opportunity, on and on and on, she didn't. Okay, that's one. Number two, I guess we had a quack doctor who lived about four doors down from us, who was reusing needles. No, it's important. No, oh well. So you ended up injecting her with an infected needle, and she had a disease that she had to live with for the rest of her life. Okay, it probably impacted her, the quality of her life. Be that as it may. That's that. Then, she was pregnant with me in 1953, and we were supposed to immigrate to the U.S. And I was supposed to be born here. My grandparents had just immigrated, I think, earlier that year. And the Americans decided they didn't need any more WAPs here, so they shut down legal immigration for the next 9 years. 9 years. So during those 9 years, she had 4 children. What if immigration had not closed off? What if she had immigrated here at age 19 or 20 instead of 29? Childless instead of 4 children to take care of? Maybe she would have learned the language. Maybe she would have learned how to drive a car, because she never drove a car, right? So it's like, okay, that's just another piece of her story, and despite that, she could have very easily played the victim card. Look at all this bad stuff that happened to me. I think she took it as motivation, and it says, I'm going to if you will, overcome this, and do things that some people would be afraid of doing. We think about getting on a Greek ship, a 23,000-ton ship. It was the Greek Alliance Olympia, and it was actually the last friggin' passage of the Atlantic, and then they put it in mothballs. Okay, and so we get on the ship in Messina, and for the first couple of days, we're in the Mediterranean. Everything is kind of calm, and then we pass the Rock of Gibraltar. And you start doing this, right? We were not in a premium cabin, right? We were actually, I think right above where the crew slept. We were probably one story up. Learned what toast was for the first time, because it's the only thing we could eat and keep down. Making that passage. Showing up in 42nd Street in New York City, which is where the ship docked, right? And when immigrants came over, we weren't sure what the heck we were going to find. So they had packed some olive oil, 2 or 3 tins of olive oil, any small furniture that they thought that they needed. They even brought like a 5-gallon tin of alcohol so they could make their own homemade liquor, because nobody bought liquor, in Italy. And obviously you brought some cheese and you brought some super salt, right? So the first thing that happens is we're going through customs, and they decide to leave the friggin' tins alone. Thank God, right? Then they find the cheese, and they said, okay, yep, you can have, cheese is okay to bring into the country. Then they found the supersat and says, no, you can't have this. So my mother, your grandmother, without missing a beat, says, don't worry about it. She takes out a knife, slices up the supersat, hands it out to everybody else in line, and she says, those son of a bitches are not going to take this home tonight.
Ooh.
Right? She would rather give it to strangers. Right? So that's, so if you will, that's, just a little bit, of her character. I'm going to touch on this a little bit tomorrow, during her eulogy. But one of the defining things that changed our lives was meeting Mr. and Mrs. Page. So Mr. and Mrs. Page, Mr. Page was actually the vice chairman of ExxonMobil back in the 60s. He lived on Wingfoot Golf Course. We were living at 349 Mount Pleasant Avenue, six family. We were on the first floor, 3 rooms, and we had great heating. There was like a cast iron pipe that ran across the, right? That was always hot, so we were never cold. I mean, a little hot in the summer, but never cold. And we made by, but across the street there was a couple, an Italian married to a German, who worked for Mr. and Mrs. Page. They got to know my dad, our dad, and our mom. The Italian man across the street passes away. He was Mrs. Page's flower gardener. Okay, so his wife, really delightful, white-haired woman who was the housekeeper, did the laundry, did the ironing. Came across knowing that we were, in need, because my dad was working at Saxon Woods Golf Course from 6 in the morning until 2. So looking for additional income. So this way they could buy 312 Prospect Avenue, right? So she comes across and says, hey, why don't you, go and talk to Mrs. Page about becoming her flower gardener? This is right. The problem was my dad was a bus driver. And prior to that, he was a truck driver. And prior to that, he was a fireman. Prior to that, he was a police officer right after World War II. Right, so he didn't exactly have the skills. So what happens? And also, my dad didn't speak very much English. This would have been 1964, 1965. So my mother looks at him and says, Vito, you go in with him, with your father, and you explain to her that she should hire your father as a flower gardener. Okay, so I'm 11 years old at the time. I take orders pretty well. I took orders pretty well back then. So we get into into my dad's car. We drive up Old White Plains Road, right? 5.5. Drive up this 5.5 acre estate. We knock on the, again, no appointment, just unexpected. We just knock on the door. This elderly English woman comes out, says, "Can I help you?" I says, "Yeah, this is my father. This is me. This person sent us, and she said that you may be looking for a flower gardener." And she looks at me and says, "Vito, what experience does he have?" I said, "He used to really take care of a lot of flower gardens in Italy." Okay. She says, "Okay, he looks like a strapping man. Does he speak any English?" I said, "Not at this time." I used simpler words back then, right? She says, "Vito, I will hire your father for $2.50 an hour, as long as you come work with him and you're going to be his translator for $1.10 an hour."
Wow.
Right. So we proceeded, for the next 5, 6, 7 years as he got to know her and and was able to communicate with her. He would work until 2, come pick me up right after school. We'd drive back up. Everything was like 5 minutes away. We'd work another 4 hours. And then the most joyous day of the month was the last day of the month, where I would write down all the hours for him, all the hours for me, and we knew we were going to get a check the next day, right? So that, you know, that went over a period of time. But more importantly, so that's at one level. At a different level, you know, I worked with Mr. and Mrs. Page long enough that they sat there and says, okay, this guy may have a brain. So they said, Vito, I think you would make an outstanding landscape, you know, architect. You know, and then what I realized was that Mr. Page was the one of the board members at the American University of Beirut. So this guy, they were into education. So what I reasoned was that they thought I could do, you know, landscape architect. Maybe I could do something else. So they sort of opened up a whole new world in terms of what's possible. Because what did I know back then? Right? I mean, at 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, I mean, you know, you're in high school, you're getting out of there as quickly as you can. Right? So this whole notion of just the coincidences, but the driving force behind it was my mother. Right? Because, I mean, she was working as many hours as she could get, you know, during the week. You know, and then, you know, she was looking, you know, to get out of that place faster. You know, upward mobility faster, making the sacrifice, you know, faster. So it's just a few things, you know, that put into perspective why she always walked like, you know, with a scowl. You know, why she always, like, the world was always imploding. Why, you know, she tended to be negative and pessimistic, right? Why she tended to be domineering and controlling, right? I mean, all those things, you know, they're, you know, not that they're ingrained, but they're learned as a defense mechanism, as a survival mechanism, you know, to the point where, I don't know everybody's history here, but as I'm looking at this group, you know, yeah, Maria, Antoine, and I faced some of it, but not the magnitude of just picking up, going across a place where you don't speak the language, you don't understand the customs.
Yeah.
You know, we always have to pick on somebody. So yeah, we were the ones they picked on, and just the amount of courage that takes. And what I want to leave you with is, had they not gotten on that shitty old Greek ship, right, and come across, we wouldn't be here. Think about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
In a little while, went over. We're having lunch, and she's like looking at me, and I'm thinking, okay, this is her loving look. This is her missing me. I hadn't seen her in a while, so I said, Grandma, what's going on? And then she looks, I see the facial expression, and then she stops, and she just looks at me, and she goes, Vito, you're so fat. I said, okay. I said, Grandma, okay, I get it. You know, I made excuses. I'm doing consulting. I'm traveling 100%. I'm eating at 10 o'clock. I hear you. I get it. I'm going to work on it. Whatever. Okay. So we continue eating lunch. I finish my food. And next thing you know, she kind of gets up. Manja. I'm like, Grandma, I'm like, you just told me I'm fat. What's going on here? It's like, no, it's okay. It's okay.
That's good.
So there's that one. But I think, you know, the other one that stood out to me, and again, I wasn't there for it, but, you know, normal people, when they want to work out, they go to the gym, they do Pilates, they do yoga, right? But I guess the story I heard about Grandma was she has a broken 3/4 fridge, and I guess this happened within the last decade. Instead of calling someone, right, or asking for help, there's the story of this 80-something-year-old literally doing deadlifts on a push cart down the street to get rid of the fridge.
Yes.
It's just like,
yes,
hey,
we have a picture of that.
Yeah, and you have that, right?
Yeah.
You got it on video. It's, you know, first, whose grandmother is that strong? That you know,
And the cart was heavier than the...
But I guess I would say that, you know, that tenacity, that strength, that independence is probably, you know, a huge part of who she was. I imagine that gave her the strength to kind of come over here and start a new life for, you know, my dad and, you know, Aunt Maria and Aunt and Uncle Julio, and set us up for the life we have today, all of us, my cousins, right? And, you know, if she didn't have that strength, you know, we wouldn't be in the position we are today. So, yeah, it's a grandma, right?
Thank you.
I think it's important that the first thing we address is the fact that
there is a very unsettled debate as to whether I or Vito is the favorite. Do we just duke it out right here? So my husband Peter he wanted to share this story, but he had to get back to our kids. But one of the first times he met my grandmother was not long after she'd had her heart surgery. And, excuse me, this is a lot harder without a voice. And I explained, you're going to be meeting my grandmother. She's a very unique woman. Probably not the typical baked you cookies grandmother. And I sit down and introduce, and we're sitting. And I said, Grandma, how are you feeling? Like, how are you? She looks Pete dead in the eye, rips open her shirt to show her scar of the shirt he had. And he was like, oh,
nice.
so that's the story he had wanted to share. Maybe it was, I wanted to say you had to be there, but it's probably better that it was just us.
Is there a bra? No bra.
She mercifully had a bra.
Good God.
But that was one way to introduce him, and I think probably the perfect way to introduce him to my grandmother.
Get it over with.
And
It's like, this is normal.
Exactly. I mean, the second was Pete and I, my husband and I, had just moved in together. We were not yet engaged, living at Tompkins Avenue right here in Mamaroneck, not far from where my grandmother lives. And, we're like in that we're living together, learning things about one another, and oh my gosh, this is so exciting. And, we're in the kitchen having our coffee, and he goes to the sink one day, and he goes, Chris? And I said, yes. He goes, what's going on outside? And I go to the window. He goes, that's your grandmother. My grandmother was in the backyard where I was living with my new boyfriend, lifting wooden pallets to move them because I guess she didn't like the position, whatever it was. This was like at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. We're getting ready for work, and she's just working hard. And I was like, is that weird? Like, this is just what she does. But yeah, there you go.
Aww.
Long story short, I mean, she was unique.
Yeah.
That is for sure. But an absolute force. I mean, we should all be a fraction of the person, her tenacity and her love for her children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren, how blessed. It was really...
Your mom is, she's there.
Chip off the old bra.
She's there.
Oh, yes.
We're
No,
not,
I see her.
but she
I
is.
see her. She lives on exclusively through my mother. And no, we are
Looking
so
for
blessed to have
pallets to
these.
move.
I was gonna say, we always see her ripping out stuff in our yard.
I know. My Google Maps picture of my house has a picture of my mom lifting something off of my driveway. I'm not even joking. You can look it up. I'll tell you the address after.
Was it a
But
car?
we were so lucky and so blessed to have this example of a force, and may we always remember, and may her memory be eternal. And yeah,
Thank
to our
you.
grandmother.
I was telling this to Georgia and Mark yesterday, and it just it made me smile. Hi. But I guess there were some weekends growing up where I guess you guys would go to hit the slots or something, and it would drop me off at Nona's overnight, and that was always kind of exciting because we would go every Sunday for lunch, but I was like, oh, what happens after hours? And so it was like the same kind of deal, we'd have a bunch of pasta and like, a sleeve of ladyfingers, and then like once all of that was done, Nona and I would go upstairs, and I would change into PJs and brush my teeth, and then we'd go in the TV room, and I'd park myself on the couch, and she'd be in her chair or her other sofa, and then we'd just turn on Jeopardy. And I just love it so much because it was like she couldn't understand a damn word because she doesn't speak English, and I didn't know what the hell was going on because I was 7. And it was like both of us were just watching it together, just completely not knowing what was going on, and it just was like suddenly our common language, you know, like suddenly we could just communicate, and I just really loved that, like those quiet moments with her. Where suddenly we were fluent, you know, in whatever language that was. Sweet.
I just say, probably some of my fondest memories of Norna
Yeah, speak up.
are, I hate public speaking. Oh, yeah, well, we can go to that, where when I was younger, I refused to eat except her.
We know.
Cotelettes, so she would literally make them night and day for me so that I didn't die of starvation. So I appreciate that. The other thing I was gonna say just now, having my own children, and I didn't think anything of it until it's very funny. When my children now go see their grandparents, they have toys, right? Actual toys. I noticed that now that when we used to go to Nona's house, we had the best time, but there were never any actual toys. They were like, muffins, and like we would just, and it's so funny, but we were always playing with like her kitchen utensils and whatever and it's just
The plastic,
it's
the plastic lamb.
Yeah.
Plastic lamb with the rope.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's just
Going from like a native
but it was
face.
such an amazing childhood memory for me, and I miss those days. I have like such the fondest memories just being there with my cousins and our families, and just Sundays having lunch, and it's probably like one of my most favorite memories of my childhood. But it just to look back and realize there were no actual toys there. But we still had
No toys, but there was a sleeve of ladyfingers.
Yeah, yeah, and then to end on that, whenever we would take Julia and Quinn to visit Nona, she would always insist on obviously feeding us, but as she got older, she wasn't cooking, so she would take the ladyfingers and insist that we all eat them. And Quinn always wanted to go visit Nona because he wanted to eat the 5,000 ladyfingers that she insisted. And this morning I was talking to them at the school bus, and Julie was trying to understand why we didn't want her to come tonight. And I said, I want you to have fond memories of Norna. The last time you saw her, we were in the kitchen. She was, giving you guys cookies. And Quinn's like, we still have a box of the cookies from Norna that in our cabinet. And I said, yes. And I said, that's probably the last box you're gonna get. And he goes, that's right, Mom. We'll just buy them at Trader Joe's. So I have so many
Can't get them there.
wonderful memories that
But I
really.
do have a fond memory of you when I was babysitting you. I mean, I know it's about grandma, but I just thought about this. I don't know, your parents had gone somewhere and you would not eat. And we have to negotiate on every single thing. Okay, Aunt Maria, I need the Barbie houses, the strawberry shortcake.
Yeah.
I mean, I ended up spending like $500 so we could eat, but she was always negotiating more choice. For herself. I just thought that was like, and I knew you weren't really eating because a lot of that stuff you were spitting out of your mouth.
I got my toys.
I know you were like a negotiator back then. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon.
Yeah, well-
Never heard you talk.
Oh my, so kind.
She's so
Loving.
supportive.
Exactly, like just embodies grandma. I have obviously a ton of amazing memories. A lot of them obviously all surround food. That was her love language, and like everyone was saying, we always had a good time at grandma's. Like Sharon was saying, no toys there, whatever. Been quite a few times at grandma's where the younger kids, we would sit at our own table, the kids' table, and we would take our pasta and we would put it at the end of our fork and we would fling it and hit the ceiling. And we thought we were so awesome. Like nobody saw us, whatever. I know Grandma knew everything that was happening, but the woman did not clean the ceiling. Those sauce stains were there forever. Forever.
They used to stick.
They used to stick too.
Yeah.
I think we wanted them to stick.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They do.
And as I got older, and anytime Mark and I would go and visit her,
first, you can't sit without eating 100 things, even though we were there just to say hi and, see how she was doing. But as she got older, she liked to gossip a lot more, and it usually revolved around who was fat and who wasn't fat. So that's usually how it went, or who we liked and who we didn't like at the time. So we had a lot of good gossip. And then finally, the last thing that my sister just reminded me of, and we talked about this earlier, was, if you would see her, like you were going just very quickly, she would always want to give you money when you left.
Yeah.
And she'd be like, just go buy your ice cream. Go buy your ice cream. And it was like $100. And like grandma, like, it's going to cost us $100. But she always did that too. I mean, I love her so much. And may her memory be eternal.
Thank you. Wait, I got.
Well, if you don't understand what I'm saying, so it translated, you're going to be in the back room already. Well, she was a very interesting woman, that's for sure. First time I met my wife, and she took me over there for lunch.
Don't tell that story. No, you can't tell that story.
So, for the first time, she took me there to meet her parents. So, we go over there. They take me down the basement because that's the eating place.
That's it.
The kitchen was brand new for 20-some years, never been touched. So I go down there, we sit down at the table, and I'm sitting on one side, and they're sitting on the opposite side, my father-in-law, and they're sitting on the opposite, on the other side. So she put the food to everybody, and then she goes to my father-in-law and she says to him, Orlando, do you want some pipa? So I kind of like stopped for a second,
Startled.
and I was like frozen.
Why did your father just?
I
what did your mother just
tell
say?
my wife, I says, back then it was a girlfriend, says, what's this she said to your father? And she realized what it was, and she started laughing. You guys don't know what that means. Only one person knows down there. And I'm not going to explain what it is.
I know.
So just keep the imagination.
I know.
So you know, yes. So that was the first story. I said, oh wow, I'm married to a great family here. So, and that was it. Also, we're living in Tompkins Avenue, and I was in the diner, and we went together back and forth, we finished, we closed the place, we're going home, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm in the bathroom, all of a sudden I see somebody outside. So, oh no, I'll take this back. Sirius told me that somebody's outside. In the garage. The garage was open. So I have a baseball bat. Grab it, and I'm going slowly, says, I don't know who is out there. And I almost walk her. But it was my mother-in-law. So she came to water the plants. That was the whole thing. 4 o'clock in the morning. And the last one, it was at, how long ago? A few weeks ago? Or 3 weeks ago? That they took the knobs from the stove. Because he was turning the stove on. So my phone rings and I looked at the number, it was my mother-in-law. And she says, I want you to come here. So something happened, she says, yeah, I want you to come to show you something. I got home and I was in the area, and she takes me in the kitchen and says, I wanted you to get me new knobs. Somebody stole my knobs. So she told me that they took them off for the reason. So I says, yes, ma, I ordered knobs. It's a back order, and because the holidays now with the Christmas and everything else, the places are closed. So we'll wait. So it's ordered. Says, oh, thank you, And that was it. The next day, another phone call for the same thing again.
Yeah.
take me back there to show me the knobs that was missing. So that was the story. So now we got the knobs back.
Yes.
And that was it.
Thank you.
She was great.
Thank you.
Your presence gives us great consolation during this bittersweet event. Yeah, Maria Rosa Fabiano was a force to be reckoned with. Strong in body, strong as stone. Her greatest legacy said she had 10 grandchildren, 17 great-grandchildren, at least 2 grandchildren here. Right? She had a relentless, immigrant work ethic, 10 to 12 hours a day at the factory, Saturdays. She never said no to overtime. Right? When the factory shut down, moved to Waterbury, she couldn't do the commute, get 2.5 hours. She worked at Jewish Center for 20 years in food preparation, and she loved her time there. Her motivation was kind of straightforward, wanted financial security, a sense of belonging, and control over the destiny of her family. That's what she was about. She's also, in retrospect, was a great leader. She knew how to delegate to us. She knew who to delegate to, give us what the desired outcome was, and if we were still there, tell us how to get there. Right? So she, tremendous leadership skills. She was very, very proud of the fact that each one of us, each of her 4 children, purchased a house before age 25 with minimum bank financing, because the last thing you wanted to do was pay interest to the bank. And what that did was we didn't have to pay rent, and it really set everybody up with a very strong financial foundation. If I want to get to the specifics, Maria at age 9 was doing banking transactions with mom. Okay? There was only one teller that actually spoke Italian. The teller didn't always work there, so our mother was not going to take a chance to put Maria with her. So Maria figured out how to basically navigate financial transactions. Maria and Bill have raised 3 amazing children, 4 unbelievable grandchildren. She sold over $500 million of real estate over a very, very long career, and she's actually a valued business partner of the bill. Okay, so that's phenomenal there. In my stories at age 11, I was sent on an interview with my father, who was a bus driver in Italy, who needed to be rebranded as a flower gardener, and we successfully did that, and it changed our lives. And the second thing was I became responsible for doing their tax returns, but not based on following the rules. There was a certain amount that they were willing to pay. So I had to do my first IRS audit at age 18. I showed up, and they basically taught me a lot, which was to make sure you do your taxes correctly. Infinite brought the laughter and lightness into our mother's life. A gift from being a DJ, she translated it into a business that has gone on for decades. And I believe she too is a valued business partner with her husband, Biddy. They raised 2 amazing children, and are blessed with a life of their life, Stella. All right, some more about our mother. She was blunt, direct, parental, judgmental. All the things that, the books that you guys are reading to raise our great-grandchildren say you shouldn't do, but she did it. And somehow we survived. She judged us based on herself being the standard. And her standard was never bring dishonor to this family and never stain the name that we carry. That was a pretty high standard. She raised 4 children to pursue the American dream, which I believe is only in America we rewarded based on what you contribute to society, regardless of your background, religious beliefs, your history. You're truly a ray of opportunity. And the 4 of us, and now the 10 and the 17 are sleeping on each other's shoulders, which is a phenomenal accomplishment. And she was the bedrock of the family. She was a decision maker, the warrior, problem solver, the discipliner, the defender, the financial planner, outright leader, strong-willed woman on a mission. She prioritized clean mattresses and good food over new clothes. I think between the four of us, I think we might have purchased one item new from Alexander's or someplace over a very long period of time, but that's been rectified, by the next generation. Our parents worked really, really hard. Within 2 years, they bought Prospect Avenue for $33,500. And set them up. If you want to know where most of us have gotten our need to renovate, it starts at 312 Prospect, pre-Civil War. We tore everything down, so now most of the family goes through the act of living as we look at houses and flows, we envision it, and then as soon as we get a chance, we knock out some walls and do things like that. So that's where our blood flows. In her later years, took tremendous pride in the family that she had raised. Her accident attacked for a period of time, and she was ready to go to rejoin Julia and our father Rhonda. So what I'm going to close with is, I hope heaven is ready for her. I think it is, but I think she'll do well. And kind of what she made, we'll put it at least. Last night. So this is the grandchildren and great grandkids. Yes. Hey Zoe,
Christina?
Right? I only made one commitment to my mother that we would do our best job to try to keep her memory alive. It's incumbent on you, because we only got, our generation's got a while, but not forever. You're going to distribute the video. You're going to keep passing it down. And if you will, take the stories that you heard and embellish on them. And that's the way we're going to keep her memory alive. Okay, I'm counting on you, we're all counting on you, and I think everything went flawless. So thank you for the
Thank you. And Miles will commit to stop thinking about the dream about this.
Hi, honey.
Don't promise that.